Hello and welcome to Free Speech Fridays on the Indubitably Sus podcast. I am relaxing after a long friggin' week. Oh, these weeks are long in healthcare. Working with people is exhausting. Working for a system, the healthcare system that is just been corporatized and industrialized and not about patient or care. Something I complain about all the time is just unsustainable and exhausting and simply not fun. So if you can't understand why you can't find doctors and healthcare workers, nurses, we're all exhausted and, gaslit into thinking that this is going to be a lovely field that makes a lot of money. No, it doesn't. And that's because insurance companies get to control how much healthcare is being paid out, and healthcare workers don't make money. Pharmaceutical industries do. The people who are in manufacturing and developing and pharmaceutical delivery probably make a good living. CEOs inside healthcare systems probably make out okay, but the people who are on the front lines actually doing the caring, we're exhausted and typically getting paid by um, productivity standards that are developed to maximize the amount of time spent with patients, not necessarily quality of care, but they're created to maximize billable units, and it has nothing to do with the quality of care you're delivering. It really has everything to do with what are you doing to maximize the amount of reimbursement for insurance companies. And a lot of times that means having to document, over document, spend a lot of time writing, which isn't billable, um, so that you can ensure um, that the insurance companies are going to reimburse, because there's someone on the other end deciding whether or not they're going to pay you for your services after the fact. And, there's probably 7,000 reasons why a insurance company can decide to not to do that. And so, a lot of the work that I do is, um, after all of my great one-on-one direct patient care involves, documenting things in such a way that it's going to allow the biggest payout capture for for any employer. So that's kind of how the system works. It's a little bit hard to explain, but basically, obviously, it is not a system that is set up in a way that creates the circumstances for good quality care, because that's not what the system is built for. It is a sick care system that is looking for a revolving door where people keep coming back, and the maximum amount of money they make usually has everything to do with the amount of pharmaceuticals that they're able to push into your body. And if you keep on an endless cycle of pharmaceuticals, then that's kind of a reason for them to be able to um, stay reimbursed, to make the most amount of money off of you. So, they're not going to tell you to eat celery and broccoli and teach you how to eat really good food, because, it's a corporate endeavor and nobody benefits. At least they don't benefit from your health. So, healthcare has nothing to do with health or care. And if you truly believe that that is a system that is working for you, you are incorrect. And so, it pays off to be indubitably sus about many things. Gosh, so many things that are um, ridiculous, inverted, upside down, and problematic right now. And I hope that this podcast will explain why I feel like I've gotten so skeptical and just, I don't know, pessimistic, I guess, when it comes to where we're headed as a society. I think that we are in a bad place, obviously, as a country, and being gaslit into believing that other people are there to support us, to have our back, to look out for us, to and by that I mean like the government or our jobs or our communities, our schools. um, it's just been, for me, a really disappointing path into learning the levels and degree of corruption inside many, if not all, of our um, institutions that we thought are in place to basically keep a structure, with a belief that there's a good solid morals and ethics and values that are foundational for our good as a society, as a nation, as a community, as a world. Um, Honestly, and I just don't, it's not the case. There's so much corruption, there's so much evil, there's every day, in the news, something is proving that to me over and over. It's hard to watch, it's hard to see. And somehow I still seem to have hope that people are waking up. I know that they are. I feel more awake, or I've awoken sooner than most, as far as being suspicious about what is being spoon fed, about propaganda um, being spewed from most media, legacy media, news organizations, newspapers. Um, I don't know. I think probably about around the time of the pandemic, definitely was my turning point, 2019, 2020. Started asking lots of questions and getting curious, digging in deep to things that, were seeming to be broken about the whys we're doing things, like who's making these decisions, who's sitting at the top, who are these decisions being made for. um, One example that I'll give is during the pandemic, after healthcare workers, everyone, well, maybe it was everyone except for healthcare workers. I happened to be working in New Hampshire, right on the. I was living in Vermont, but working in New Hampshire, and in a very, very rural area. And when news was getting around that people were dying over in China, and then there was a big, I guess the first outbreak happened in Washington State or Oregon. It was Oregon or Washington. Kind of the pandemic seemed to kind of um, pandemic attention to the COVID flu really originated from that part of the country, and I guess that started the launch of all of the fear and confusion, and well, we all experienced what happened after that. My hospitalist based job shut down immediately, even though we had absolutely zero cases throughout the whole pandemic. They were very extremely cautious where I was living. New England, I think, tended to be a little bit more extreme when it came to taking the kids out of school early, and kept them out for a prolonged period of time. Um, and hospitals stayed closed for a long time in spite of the fact that, I don't necessarily know that there were any, specific, quote unquote, COVID related deaths. And so, in spite of all the fear and, mainstream news stories, it was dissonant. I think what I was experiencing was actually nothing like what the news was pushing out. And so for healthcare workers, it kind of changed everything. A lot of doctors were able to pivot to, doing some telehealth as a physical therapist. I was not. We were not able to do that because it, or didn't or easily do that, because having a physical job and, something that relied on um, direct patient care didn't translate well to the telehealth world. And so, yeah, it really affected, my ability to work and go back to work and be a sole parent and stay at home for for a long period of time. Um, though I loved it, I loved being at home with my girls, and I love homeschooling. It didn't bother me that I was out of work, except for the fact that it was unsustainable. I couldn't do it. I couldn't, you know, be at home with them and schooling them and not getting paid. And so, um, yeah, there was a black hole in the pandemic times because, I feel like we as sole parents were kind of left high and dry, not able to bounce back in any way, you know, that was logical. There was, well, go back to work, go back to work. But, what do you do when your kids aren't in school? And I still feel like nothing really bounced back. I mean, let's be honest. The kids that were off of school during that period of time, there's such a gap and a gap in education. Um, but even worse than that, there's a gap in behaviors because there were people who did homeschool, and I had homeschooled and done alternative schools, and I just am pretty invested in my um, girls' education. I also, I guess in having an advanced degree and living off the land, there was always something, a project that we could engage in and incorporate some kind of a lesson into learning. And that wasn't true for a lot of people. I think a lot of parents really struggled with being at home with their kids and understanding what it is that a child needs as far as their own growth and development. Maybe I'm a little bit biased and a little bit blessed that I've done a lot of continuing education, studying in school, taking courses in child development, but also had a very personal interest in it. And so when I decided to be a mother and to have children of my own, that I was going to educate myself in different strategies, as far as raising kids, like what it took to do things in a way, as I kind of saw the world devolving and becoming, I don't know, I guess a little less connected with life, with Earth, with each other. So I did a ton of research, and when I decided to have a home birth and raise my daughter alone, my first daughter, well, the path was similar for both of them, but there's obviously a lot more learning to do with the first child. Um, for me, I wanted to learn how to, a different approach than a lot of people were taking. Was like, how do I create the best circumstances, the healthiest circumstances for my children? What does it take to allow a child to be fully engaged with life and full of life. And that meant, learning how to eat. It meant learning how to, um, creating a balance, learning how to find harmony with what I needed as a human and what my girls needed. And I don't know. I feel like it came easier to me than many of other of my peers, and probably because I was so disconnected from, television, from internet, from having a cell phone. Like I didn't seem to need that um, tool, that babysitter, that thing that people used as a distraction. I feel really grateful that having had grown up on a farm, I found a lot of um, pleasure in, having a garden and raising animals and tending to the land and tending to the house and being a housekeeper. Um, yeah, I just, I find that, I don't know, I'm pretty old fashioned. So none of that felt problematic to me. The thing that I felt was really hard was having to be forced into working long hours, working at a computer, having to take care of people all day long, and then circling back around and having to uh, do the corporate piece of my work. And then having enough, time and energy to be able to um, take care of myself, get my own needs met. I guess that's the best way to say it. So anyway, this rant is, what am I free speeching on? Just that I'm tired today, that it's been an exhausting last couple of weeks here, as I feel like corporatized health care has really gotten out of hand and maybe just feels entirely, I don't know, malaligned for what I need and want to do with my life. And so as I sit here getting used to putting myself in front of the screen for the sake of um, expressing myself, for the sake of learning how to engage with a camera and with my own voice. Um, yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out what is the next step. I think, like so many of us, right? Like what comes next, and I circle back around to, the days that felt really terrific in being able to be at home and tending to the animals and tending to the land, and yeah, just being a serving the planet, serving the earth by being a good steward of Mother Earth, and a good mother myself to my girls, which I know that and I am. So I'm pretty grateful for that, and having the opportunity to be a mom, be able to reflect on my path, and yeah, and I guess just figuring out where I go from here. um, I guess there's unlimited possibility. So I appreciate this reflection, and Look forward to joining you again on Tuesday for Tongue Lashing Tuesday. All right. Bye for now.